Jake had been delivering for DoorDash for 3 years, and he thought he'd seen everything. Late-night drunks, weird addresses, even a few sketchy neighborhoods that made him double-check his car doors. But nothing prepared him for apartment 4B at Riverside Manor. It started on a Tuesday night in October. The order came through at exactly 11:47 p.m. Always the same time, always the same customer, M. Henderson. Chinese takeout from Golden Dragon, always paid through the app, always with a $20 tip that made Jake's night. The delivery instructions were simple. Leave food outside apartment 4B. Do not knock, do not ring doorbell. Easy money, Jake thought. The customer was probably just antisocial or working nights. He delivered to plenty of people who preferred contactless delivery. Riverside Manor was one of those old brick buildings from the 1940s, the kind where the hallway lights flickered and the elevator groaned like it was in pain. Jake climbed to the 4th floor, set the bag down outside 4B, snapped the delivery photo, and left. The transaction went through immediately, $20 tip included. This happened every Tuesday for 6 weeks. Same time, same order, same apartment. Jake started looking forward to it, reliable income and an unpredictable job. But on the 7th week, something changed. As Jake approached apartment 4B, he noticed the door was slightly ajar. Not wide open, just cracked enough that he could see a sliver of darkness inside. He hesitated. The delivery instructions were clear. Leave the food and go. But something felt wrong. The hallway was colder than usual, and there was a smell, sweet and cloying, like flowers left too long in stagnant water. Jake set the bag down and was about to leave when he heard it. A soft scratching sound from inside the apartment, like fingernails on wood. Then a voice, barely a whisper. "Thank you for feeding me." He bolted down the stairs, heart pounding, telling himself he'd imagined it. Stress, too much caffeine, overactive imagination. But when he checked his phone in the car, there was no payment notification. For the first time in 6 weeks, M. Henderson hadn't paid. The next day, Jake called DoorDash support to ask about the failed payment. After 20 minutes on hold, the representative came back with information that made his hands shake. "Sir, there's no record of any customer named M. Henderson in our system, and according to our delivery map, apartment 4B at Riverside Manor has been vacant for 8 months. Jake drove back to Riverside Manor that afternoon. The building manager, a tired-looking woman in her 60s, confirmed what DoorDash had told him. Apartment 4B? Honey, nobody's lived there since March. The previous tenant, well, she passed away. Natural causes, they said, but she'd been dead for 3 weeks before anyone found her. Neighbors complained about the smell. What was her name? Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. Martha Henderson. Sweet old lady, kept to herself. Apparently, she used to order Chinese food every Tuesday night. Jake never delivered to Riverside Manor again. But sometimes on Tuesday nights, around 11:47 p.m., his phone would buzz with an order notification from M. Henderson. Each time, he declined the delivery and tried to convince himself it was just a glitch in the app. Last week, a new DoorDash driver named Marcus started in Jake's zone. Marcus was eager, needed the money, took every order that came his way. When Jake saw him accept a delivery to apartment 4B on Tuesday night, he tried calling to warn him. The call went straight to voicemail. Marcus hasn't answered his phone since Tuesday night. His car was found in the Riverside Manor parking lot, engine still running, driver's door open. The delivery bag was missing, and his last GPS ping showed him on the 4th floor of the building. The apartment 4B delivery orders have stopped coming through the app, but every Tuesday night,
Jake drives past Riverside Manor and sees a light flickering in the fourth-floor window, the same window that's supposed to be vacant. Sometimes, if he looks closely, he can see two shadows moving behind the curtain.
Don't forget to like and subscribe if you dare to hear more chilling stories. Carmen had always been careful about double-checking addresses. 3 years of delivering for Uber Eats had taught her that GPS wasn't always reliable, especially in rural areas outside Austin, where house numbers were sparse and mailboxes were often hidden behind overgrown bushes. But on that rainy Thursday night in November, careful wasn't enough. The order was straightforward. Thai food from Bangkok House, delivery to 1247 Mockingbird Lane. Customer name, David Chen. The GPS led her down a winding country road she'd never been on before, past farmhouses with long driveways and mailboxes that looked like they hadn't been painted since the Clinton administration. When she pulled up to what her GPS insisted was 1247 Mockingbird Lane, Carmen felt a chill that had nothing to do with the November rain. The house was wrong. Not just rundown wrong, but fundamentally wrong, in a way that made her skin crawl. It was a 2-story Victorian that looked like it had been beautiful once, maybe 50 years ago. Now the paint was peeling, the wraparound porch sagged, and several windows on the second floor were boarded up with plywood that had warped and split. But on the porch light was on, and there was a car in the driveway, an old sedan that might have been blue once upon a time. Carmen checked the app again. 1247 Mockingbird Lane. $47.82 worth of Thai food. Customer had already tipped $15. She needed this money. Rent was due in 3 days. She grabbed the bag, ran through the rain to the porch, and knocked on the front door. The sound echoed inside like she was knocking on the door of a cathedral. After a moment, she heard footsteps. Slow, shuffling footsteps that seemed to take forever to reach the door. "David Chen?" she called out. "Uber Eats delivery." "Just a moment," came a voice from inside. Male, elderly, with a slight accent that might have been Chinese. The footsteps shuffled away, then returned. The door opened to reveal a man in his 70s, wearing a cardigan that had seen better decades, and thick glasses that magnified his eyes unnaturally. "Thank you, dear," he said, reaching for the bag. His hands were ice cold when they brushed against hers. "I've been so hungry, so very hungry." Something about the way he said it made my stomach lurch. I forced a smile and handed over the food. "Have a good night, sir." But as she turned to leave, the old man spoke again. "Would you like to come in for tea? I don't get many visitors anymore." Carmen politely declined and hurried back to her car. As she drove away, she glanced in the rearview mirror and saw the man still standing on his porch, watching her car disappear into the rain. Something about his silhouette seemed wrong. Too tall and thin, like a shadow stretched by an unseen light. The next morning, Carmen couldn't shake the feeling that something had been off about the delivery. She decided to look up 1247 Mockingbird Lane on Google Maps just to satisfy her curiosity. What she found made her blood run cold. According to the satellite imagery, 1247 Mockingbird Lane was an empty lot. Not just recently bulldozed, it had been empty for decades. The street view confirmed it. A patch of overgrown grass and weeds with an old stone foundation barely visible among the tall grass. No Victorian house, no wraparound porch, no driveway. Carmen called Uber Eats support, but they insisted the delivery had been completed successfully to the correct address. When she asked about David Chen, the representative told her the customer account had been deleted immediately after the delivery was marked complete. No phone number on file, no payment method, no delivery history. Determined to solve the mystery, Carmen drove back to Mockingbird Lane in daylight. She found the empty lot exactly where the GPS had taken her the night before. But in the grass, she could see tire tracks from her car, proof that she'd been there. And scattered among the weeds were white takeout containers from Bangkok House, already old and weathered, as if they'd been there for months. A neighbor from across the street saw her poking around and came over to chat. Mrs. Rodriguez was a retired school teacher who'd lived in the area for 30 years. "You looking for the Chen place?" she asked when Carmen described the Victorian house. "You know about it?" Mrs. Rodriguez nodded grimly. House burned down in 1987. Electrical fire, they said, but nobody really believed that. David Chen was a sweet old man. Lived there alone after his wife died. Neighbors said he'd been acting strange in the weeks before the fire, talking to people who weren't there, ordering food for dinner parties he wasn't having. What happened to him? Died in the fire. They found him in the kitchen, sitting at his dining room table like he was waiting for guests. The weird thing was the table was set for 4 people, and there were takeout containers all around him. Thai food, pizza, Chinese, like he'd been ordering delivery for weeks but never eaten it. She pointed to the empty lot. Sometimes, on rainy nights like last Thursday, people say they still see lights in the windows where the house used to be. Delivery drivers have been coming by for years, all confused, saying their GPS brought them here, but nobody ever believes them. Carmen never delivered to that part of town again. But sometimes, when she's driving late at night and her phone buzzes with a delivery notification, she checks the address twice, because she knows somewhere in the system, David Chen is still ordering his dinner, still waiting for someone to come keep him company in his house, burned down 35 years ago. And sometimes, just sometimes, the GPS still tries to take drivers to 1247 Mockingbird Lane. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you dare to hear more chilling stories.
Riley had always prided himself on being tech-savvy. As a computer science student working part-time for Grubhub, he debugged enough app glitches to know when something was genuinely wrong versus just user error. But the notifications that started appearing on his phone 3 weeks ago defied every logical explanation he could think of. It began on a Sunday night in late October. Riley was finishing up his shift, heading home through downtown Portland, when his phone chimed with a delivery request. Nothing unusual there. Sunday nights were always busy. But when he looked at the screen, his blood ran cold. The order was from a restaurant called The Last Supper Diner. The customer name was listed as R. Murphy, which happened to be Riley's own name, Riley Murphy. The address was his apartment building, Unit 3B, his exact apartment. But he hadn't placed any order. Assuming it was some kind of system glitch, Riley called Grubhub support. After 30 minutes on hold, a representative named Ashley pulled up his account. "I'm not seeing any active orders under your name, Mr. Murphy," she said. "Are you sure you're logged into the right account?" Riley was sure. He ended the call, took a screenshot of the delivery request, and marked himself as unavailable for the night. The notification disappeared, but he couldn't shake the weird feeling it left behind. The next Sunday, it happened again. Same restaurant, same customer name, same address, but this time the order was different. Instead of a burger and fries, it was a full Thanksgiving dinner. Turkey, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, the works. The pickup time was listed as 11:47 p.m. Riley decided to investigate. He'd never heard of The Last Supper Diner, so he Googled it. No results. He checked Yelp, Google Maps, even the city's business license database. Nothing. According to every record he could find, The Last Supper Diner didn't exist. But the notification was still there on his phone, complete with the restaurant's supposed address, 1247 Cemetery Drive. Riley knew Portland well, and he'd never heard of Cemetery Drive. Google Maps couldn't find it either. Growing more curious and slightly unnerved, Riley decided to accept the delivery request.
just to see what would happen. The app immediately routed him to an address he'd never seen before, down a narrow road that seemed to wind behind the old Riverview Cemetery. The GPS showed him making turns onto streets that weren't marked on any map he could find. After 20 minutes of driving through increasingly unfamiliar neighborhoods, Riley found himself parked outside a small, run-down diner that looked like it hadn't been renovated since the 1950s. The neon sign in the window flickered weakly. The Last Supper Diner, open 24 hours. But the parking lot was empty, and most of the windows were dark. Riley sat in his car for 10 minutes, debating whether to go inside. Every instinct told him to drive away, to mark the order as undeliverable and forget the whole thing. But his curiosity won out. He grabbed his delivery bag and walked to the front door. The door was unlocked, and a small bell chimed as he stepped inside. The diner was exactly what he'd expected. Worn vinyl booths, a long counter with chrome stools, black and white checkered floor that had seen better decades. But it was completely empty. No customers, no staff, no sounds from the kitchen. "Hello?" Riley called out. "Grubhub delivery for R. Murphy?" "Coming right out, hun. Just finishing up the order." A woman emerged from the back, middle-aged, wearing a stained apron and a tired smile. She handed Riley a bag that was warm and smelled like traditional Thanksgiving dinner. $47.82. The customer already paid through the app, plus tip. You're right on time. Riley wanted to ask questions about the diner, about the order, about how his own name had ended up as the customer. But something about the woman's smile made him uncomfortable, like she was sharing a joke he wasn't in on. He took the bag and left. The drive back to his apartment building seemed to take no time at all. Before he knew it, he was standing outside his own front door, holding a bag of food he hadn't ordered. His hands shook as he unlocked his apartment. Inside, he found his roommate, Kevin, sitting at their kitchen table, looking pale and confused. "Dude, where have you been? I've been calling you for 2 hours. And why did you order so much food? I'm not even that hungry." Riley looked at Kevin in confusion. "I didn't order any food, and I just got home from my delivery shift." Kevin pointed to the kitchen counter where several empty takeout containers were scattered. "Then who ate all this? I came home an hour ago and found it sitting on our table, still warm. I figured you'd ordered it and left it for me, but there was way more than I could finish." Riley checked his phone. According to the timestamp, he'd marked the delivery as complete at 9:30 p.m., but his phone's clock now showed 11:47 p.m. He'd lost over 2 hours somewhere between leaving the Last Supper Diner and arriving home. The delivery bag in his hands was empty. Since that night, the Sunday notifications have continued. Same restaurant, same customer name, same address. But now, Riley recognizes the pattern. Every Sunday at exactly 9:30 p.m., he accepts the delivery. Every Sunday, he drives to the Last Supper Diner and picks up an order for R. Murphy. Every Sunday, he loses 2 hours and 17 minutes of his life, arriving home at 11:47 p.m. with no memory of the drive back. And every Sunday, Kevin finds empty takeout containers on their kitchen table, still warm, as if someone had been waiting for Riley to come home and join them for dinner. The terrifying part isn't the lost time, or the impossible restaurant, or even the fact that someone or something is using his identity to place orders he'll never remember delivering. The terrifying part is that Riley has started looking forward to Sundays, because somewhere in those missing 2 hours and 17 minutes, in that empty diner that doesn't exist on any map, Riley has found something he didn't even know he was searching for. He just wishes he could remember what it was. Last Sunday, Kevin wasn't home when Riley returned from his mysterious delivery. But on the kitchen table,
alongside the usual empty containers, Riley found something new. A handwritten note in his own handwriting that he didn't remember writing. "Thank you for joining us for dinner. Same time next week. The management." Riley crumpled up the note and threw it away. But when he woke up Monday morning, it was back on his nightstand, smoothed out as if it had never been wrinkled. This Sunday, Riley has decided he's not going to accept the delivery request. He's going to stay home, keep Kevin company, and figure out once and for all what's happening to those missing hours. But as 9:30 p.m. approaches, his phone sits on the coffee table, screen dark and silent. Riley watches the clock. 9:28, 9:29, 9:30. No notification. For the first time in weeks, the Last Supper diner isn't calling. Riley should feel relieved. Instead, he feels a crushing sense of loss, like he's missing an appointment with someone important, someone who's been waiting for him every Sunday night, someone who knows him better than he knows himself. At exactly 9:30 p.m., Riley grabs his keys and heads for the door. "Where are you going?" Kevin calls after him. Riley pauses, his hand on the doorknob. He doesn't remember making the decision to leave, doesn't remember grabbing his keys, but he knows exactly where he's going. "I have a delivery to make," he says, and steps out into the night. Behind him, Kevin finds a fresh takeout bag on the kitchen table, still warm, with a receipt time-stamped 11:47 p.m., 17 minutes in the future. The customer name on the receipt reads K. Walsh, Kevin's full name. Kevin's phone, sitting silent on the counter, has never had the Grubhub app installed. But next Sunday, it will.
If these stories sent chills down your spine, don't vanish into the darkness without hitting that like button. Share your scariest experience in the comments below, because your story might be featured next. And remember, the scariest thing is missing out. So subscribe now, before the next nightmare finds you.